Cerebellum is an important part of the central nervous system. However, we usually neglect its examination. Moreover, it is one of the important spots in the OSCE exam at the end of the round. Let us understand how this organ functions and how to examine it. Cerebellum is that organ that lies in the posterior fossa below the tentorium. Its function is divided into three major categories. Number one, coordination of motor movement. That implies how fast, accurate, and smooth is the movement. Number two, keeping the balance. Number three, regulation of muscle tone. So patients with cerebellar dysfunction will have hypotonia. These functions are performed by this little organ as it processes data coming via the deep sensory system, the vestibular system, and vision, in addition to others. It processes data and sends simplified scheme to the motor cortex to perform the motor act in an accurate, fast, and smooth way. Now, how to examine for these functions? Number one, coordination. For coordination examination, we have two parts. Number one, the coordination proper, which includes examination of upper limbs and lower limbs. For the upper limbs, we have two tests. Test number one is called finger to nose test. And test number two is called finger to finger test. For the lower limb, we have one test. It is called heel, knee, chin test. The other part of examination of coordination is doing rapid alternating movement. In addition, we have some other subsidiary signs, including examination for nystagmus, and examination for articulation, which is usually associated with staccato dysarthria. The second part, which is examination of balance, we examine it by asking the patient to walk on straight line and watch his gait. The third part of examination of the cerebellar dysfunction is the examination of toe. Examination of tone is usually illustrated by a sign called rebound sign. Starting with coordination of the upper limbs, if the cerebellum is not functioning properly, the motor cortex will not give accurate motor order to the upper limb. For example, if we ask the patient to point to his nose with his right index finger, he will miss it and will point a short distance before the nose. At this moment, the visual cortex will see the mistake done and send some data to the motor cortex, which in turn will try to correct its mistake by sending forward impulses to advance the index. But these impulses will be either too few or too excessive, leading to post-pointing, which will be also noticed by the visual cortex. Then the motor cortex will retry to correct its mistake again, and the process will be repeated till the final correction is reached. The to and fro movement of the index is called intention tremors. So the patient with cerebellar dysfunction will have 4 points demonstrated. Number one, dysmetria, that's to say, inaccurate localization of the tip of the nose by the index. Number two, pre-pointing, pointing before the nose. Number three, post-pointing. On correction, he will point after the nose. Number four, The to and fro movement of the index will create intention tremors, so the fourth is intention tremor. If the patient is doing the test properly, then repeat it with the eye closed to exclude deep sensory loss. If the patient has bilateral cerebellar lesion, he will have bilateral cerebellar incoordination. So at that moment, the best way is to examine finger-to-finger test by asking the patient to point with the tip of the index finger of one side to the tip of the index finger of the opposite side, and look how accurate he is doing the tip to the tip, as patients with cerebellar ataxia will have incoordination that will be manifested by dysmetria and the pre-pointing, post-pointing, and intention tremors. The patient will not accurately localize the tip to the tip. So this is called incoordination of the motor function of both upper limbs using the test finger-to-finger test. If the patient is doing this test properly, at that moment ask the patient to do it with the eye closed to exclude deep sensory loss. For examination of coordination in the lower limbs, we do a test called heel knee chin test. This test passes through three phases. Phase number 1, let the heel of the examined side be held in the space upward. Then phase 2, point with this heel to the knee of the opposite side. Phase 3, let the heel move in a straight line of the chin of the tibia of the other side. So we have three phases: going the heel up, pointing with the heel to the other knee, and then walking with the heel or passing the heel in a straight line over the chin of the other tibia. In patients with cerebellar ataxia, they have disturbance of the three phases. In phase number 1, on getting the heel up due to hypotonia, this heel shoot up, overshooting the place assigned to it, so it flows in the air. This rapid flowing of the heel in the air is called overshooting. Phase number 2, we have the dysmetria and inability to focus with the heel on the other knee due to the dysmetria. Pre-pointing and post-pointing will result in intention tremors. In phase number 3, we have failure to get the heel pass in a straight line over the chin of the other tibia. So the heel will move in a zigzag movement over the chin of the other tibia. So the three phases are disturbed in a patient with cerebellar ataxia. Other part of the cerebellar coordination examination is examination of rapid alternating movement, what we call diadokinesis. If the patient has right cerebellar dysfunction, this will cause adiadokinesis or dysdiadokinesis. That is to say, if he is asked to do rapid alternating movement by his hand, for example, the rapid alternating movement will be erratic, arrhythmic, and slow if compared to the normal side. We call this dysdiadokinesis, or if he cannot do it at all, we call it adiadokinesis. Then we have some subsidiary tests to motor coordination that include examination for nystagmus. If a patient has left cerebellar hemisphere lesion, he will have jerky nystagmus on looking to the left. Other subsidiary test, which is examination of articulation. Patients with cerebellar dysfunction will have staccato dysarthria. Look at this patient.
My motor nerves a whole bit seem to have been affected by whatever I have.
And how long has this been going on?
For about a year, continuously.
Okay, good. I'll give you a minute to breathe there so you don't hyperventilate on it. I'm going to want you to take another deep breath and say E for as long as you can, and make sure to make the distinct little separate E sounds. Okay?
Good.
Sure, anytime.
Then let us discuss the second function of the cerebellum, which is keeping the balance. How to examine for the balance function of the cerebellum. First of all, ask the patient to walk in a straight line. If he is able to walk in a straight line, the foot just in front of the foot, this means that he is keeping good balance and the cerebellar function is good. But if he is finding some difficulty in doing so, this means that he has a central cerebellar dysfunction. Sometimes the cerebellar dysfunction is so disturbing to the gait, so the patient is not able to walk even in a straight line or even independently. He swings from side to side. At that time, it's better to give him a walker and see his gait. Usually the patient with cerebellar dysfunction, the central part of the cerebellum affected, cannot stand on a narrow base. Usually he stands on a wide base even before walking. So look at the base of the gait the patient has and look at the way he is walking, how straight he is walking, and his ability to walk on a straight line, and this will give you a very good hint about the balance. Then the last function of the cerebellum, which is keeping the tone. Patients with cerebellar dysfunction have hypotonia. How to examine for this hypotonia? We examine for it by doing test which is called the rebound test. Rebound test is done in two ways. Number one, ask the patient to extend his arms in the air and keep this position. Then suddenly push the dorsum of the hand downwards and let it. So the patient will try to regain the same position before pressing. Patients with cerebellar dysfunction will have hypotonia. So on resuming the position, they will overshoot due to the hypotonia. Another way to examine for the rebound is to ask the patient to hold his fist in a strong position and keeping the elbow flexed, and you try to extend the elbow. He will resist. At that moment, let the elbow and look how he stopped the overshooting forearm. If he cannot stop it and the forearm will kick the shoulder, this means that the patient has hypotonia, and this is an examination of the rebound for patients with cerebellar dysfunction. At the end, I hope you made benefit of this illustration and I hope you very good luck inshallah.